Okay, welcome again to our weekly marketplace influencer interview. Met this guy not because I know him personally, but because when I started using LinkedIn, he is considered one of the 100 Filipinos to be followed, learning and inspiration. So if you get to be active in LinkedIn, even Facebook, you get to see his insights, his wisdom on leadership, even in selling. For a while, when I first met him it was a meeting a year ago, he was the interim GM of Inspire Leadership Consultancy. But now he's focusing more again of being a resource speaker, consultant. At the same time, he is also the VP and COO of Zagana Inc. Just in case you would want to know it, we'll ask more about him because it's a very interesting platform, especially we are in this day and age. Because of our situation, this kind of business really works more. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest, Mr. Jeff Manhilot.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you so much. And glad to be here. It's a privilege and always an honor to be invited to impart what God has given us has given us as a mission, Lord, na nagagawa natin, especially nowadays.
Can you explain more what Zagana Inc. is for the market, at least para makita din nila?
Yeah, well, Zagana is as mentioned kanina, Tommy, and although it's a very, complex time na meron tayo ngayon, lalo na sa e-commerce, diba? Zagana is mainly a way to eventually buy your fresh produce at saka yung frozen goods online, or in our own words, sabi namin, Zagana is an online farm to kitchen source for fresh produce and frozen goods, who delivers what you order in as fast as 30 minutes. Dati kasi ang uso e-commerce, diba? Usually bibili ka sa Lazada, sa Shopee, sa itong mga platforms, sa Amazon, and it takes you about mabilis na yung 3 araw eh. Kadalasan 3 araw, 1 linggo, 2 linggo, depende sa gaano katagal bago ma-deliver sa'yo. Now, meron tayong tinatawag kasi yung Insta-commerce, and Zagana is now in that kind of, parang situation or realm, no? Para bang yan, Insta-commerce yan. Meaning to say, umorder ka ngayon ng gulay, for example sa amin, umorder ka sa amin ng gulay online, you will get the orders in as fast as 30 minutes. Yan. So yun yung yan ang Zagana. Yan yung ginagawa namin for consumers. Now, on the other hand, isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit din namin binuo ito, especially yung mga co-founders, yung mga founders natin, was that gusto kasi naming matulungan yung mga farmers natin, fisher folks, poultry growers, and yung mga livestock growers, na yung ginagawa nila, bulk of what our consumers are paying, would really go to them. Kumbaga, we want to buy it from them at fair market price. Hindi yung parabang na, syempre sila yung laging nakakawawa, parabang lagi pag marami yung produce, marami yung production, mababa presyo, pagka konti, tsaka lang sila kumikita. Can you imagine, Tommy, sorry, I'll take this opportunity kasi we feel passionately about this one. In several of our visits with farmers and fisher folks, alam mo, isa sa mga nakakalungkot, there's no incentive for them to produce more or to eventually make their production, yung yield nila to be higher. Kasi the moment that they produce more or they harvest so much, prices go down. And that's not an incentive that they would want. Kasi nangyayari, kaya tayo nakakita ng tinatapon na lang, may mga times na natatapon na lang, primarily because ang baba na lang silang binibili sa merkado. Parang sobrang, to the point that it's no longer viable for them to even deliver the produce from their farm to the trading posts. Kasi nga, sobrang baba na nung presyo. So that's something that we want to change eventually using technology. That we can still encourage them to produce more kasi we can eventually bring their produce straight to our consumers, and the consumers will also enjoy the freshness, the quality, and the reasonability of prices because of that. So yan naman yung ginagawa ng Zagana ngayon.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. At least na gets ko din eh. Kasi nagtataka kami. Kasi when I try to ask for opinion from other people, what do you think of Zagana Inc? Kasi e-commerce, ganun, sa'yo na may, ganun. Tapos isip ko, bakit ganun yung comment niya? Now, you answered much of the question. Now, it answers much of the question. So, basically, siguro kung makakuha ka ng mura, talo na yung, yung mga farmers. And you are trying to help that farmers not to be on the losing end. So, which is a good idea also na that explains the pricing. That explains. Kasi kaysa naman eventually, nisip ko, kaysa naman mag-source ulit tayo elsewhere or abroad, talo na naman tayo. Zagana Inc. is probably the platform trying to support our local farmers so that we will have better produce in the Philippines. Para hindi natin mag-source out eventually eh. At least we are ensured that we have quality here, we have more supply, hindi natakot din sila na mag-produce more. So yun.
Yeah.
So that's a very nice idea. So just in case you have questions about the pricing, now you know why the pricing is that way. It favors our farmers. It benefits us actually, our country in general.
No, I totally agree, Tommy. And in fact, one of the things na ginagawa namin sa Zagana is that we're highlighting the farmers, the fisher folks. Zagana as a brand is there to be a bridger of gaps. But ang bida talaga dito, kadalasan naming binibida is yung farmers talaga na nagpo-produce ng natin. And we even encourage na talagang sila yung magsalita, mag-testimony on behalf of what we're doing. Kasi that's the only way para malaman din ng consumers natin kung totoo ba talaga to, or it's another marketing campaign that we're doing. Kaya may mga times kami, may mga slogan kami na it's more than a marketing campaign. It's a mission well lived. Kasi whenever we highlight our farmers and what we do, unapologetically ginagawa namin to para mas marami pang bumili sa Zagana. Kasi kami deep down, alam namin, every time na you buy or every time na lumaki yung Zagana, mas marami kaming nabibili doon sa mga farmers and by the way, Tommy, kasi sa mga ginagawa din namin is that we really buy outright from our farmers. Meaning to say, hindi kami yung nagko-consignment or they would put their produce platform, ganyan, hindi. Talagang we invest. Sometimes we have to, shell out a lot of money so that we can buy more from them. And yun.
Kasi actually, this is not my first time to interview on somewhat similar to this, but this is my first time to interview on particularly about, say I've interviewed about cacao farmers, about cacao, mga ganon. Pero nakita ko yung similarities. So I realized the common thing that is needed right now is we have to support the farmers. Kasi pwedeng sabihin natin maybe the price, maybe bakit ganun yung price? Baka may mas mura. Yung pala yung mas mura pala yun, lugi na pala sila. Tapos lalo na di-discourage na sila. And in the long run, talo tayo. As a country, tayong talo. Kasi now we are forced to look other sources, which is far more expensive because we don't have our own source now. Now the price that Zagana Inc. is showing in sa mga platforms like Lazada, mga ganon, Shopee. Tama? Okay, baka magkamali ako, may namisat ako. It supports the farmers so that it will not discourage them because it's more favorable. Kasi I've interviewed even about coffee farming, cacao farming. Nasay ko kapag mas malakas yung farming natin, hindi tayo magkakaproblema. Kasi it's about long-term naman tayo. We're thinking long-term. Maybe at the moment, okay, there's a price thing, but it supports so it favors us. Yan. Thank you for sharing that. Siguro, how did you discover your leadership journey? Parang ito yung calling ko, leadership journey. Kasi you are passionate about leadership. So, and especially right now, we have this thing about leadership. Parang minsan may poor definition of it because it it lost its currency, or because it's how it was misused by some speakers, some ano yung parang nawala eh. But how
Yeah.
would you describe leadership, and why did you discover as this leadership journey of yours?
That's a whole day program that I usually do, Tommy, but I'll try to unpack it a bit and use this, kumbaga, use the time that we have to eventually, I'll try my best to answer that in a more concise manner. Now, yung sa una mong tanong, so you have two questions. One question is that, how do I describe leadership? Simple lang kasi ang leadership naman din, Tommy, as I recognize it, as I probably would define it. Leadership is something that you eventually get when someone tries to follow you. Tama ba? Or it's something that you have when someone is following you. Or in short, sabi ni John Maxwell and other leadership guru, leadership is equal to influence. Now, kasi may nakakatawa nga ako dating nabasa, sabi ganun, if you think you're leading and nobody's following you, you're actually not leading, you're just taking a walk. So naglalakad ka lang daw para ganun. So akala mo nag-lead ka. But kidding aside, so leadership is all about influence. So if you're influencing someone, and I don't know of any person who is not an influencer. Kasi kahit sino na makita mo, meron ka na-influensyahan. May isa pang minsan na biroan, di ba? Ano ba ang mga leaders? Are they made or are they born? No? Sabi nila, some people would say they're made kasi you eventually learn to become a leader. Sabi naman ng iba, no, inherent yan, they were born. A famous speaker, si Francis Kong, would always say, no, you have to be born first before you are made into a leader. So it's both, no. But I would say din naman na they're both, because when we were born, we were given by God this inherent kumbaga quality, diba? We were made in the image of God, sabi sa Bible, and that in itself allows us to eventually influence others, kasi we have a piece of who God is inside us, and that is something na all of us has already, a leadership aspect, kasi we're bound to eventually influence others, kasi nga we're reflecting God's image. Who wouldn't want to follow someone whose reflection is a great creator, diba? So for me, leadership is all about influence. So if you're not, actually nga hindi we're all influencing someone. Now the only question probably we have to ask ourselves is this: how do I want to eventually lead others, or how do I eventually want to influence others? And I think that's why doon naman ako magse-segue doon sa isa mong tanong na bakit ba ako how did I get into this, para bang leadership consultancy, or at least why did I become so passionate about leadership? Well, primarily because yun nga, sabi ko nga, at early on in my life or career, I would say, let's go back, back in time, 2001, early 2000. By the way, Tommy, I'm already 43, turning 44 this year. So I've been in the workforce for about 20 years now. 2 decades na akong nasa larangan ng pagtatrabaho, ika nga, in the workforce. 17 years of that I spent in the corporate, so to speak, FMCG. Apart from itong sa Zagana, kasi I went back. That's another story altogether. So going back, so early on in my career, I was able to watch a very inspirational speaker talk about leadership. And I was inspired. Sabi ko, you know what? I want to do what he's doing. I really want to eventually inspire the way he inspired me, the way he was talking, the way he was delivering his talk, the way he was being persuasive about, becoming a better leader, a better person, a better someone who would eventually achieve his or her full potential. And I was inspired. But what struck me the most during that time was, sabi niya, yung nakita ko kasi na he was grounded with practice or with experience. Meaning to say, he was not talking from a book. He wasn't quoting people. He was not just, parang talking about theories, but he also showed examples. He he gave his story and so on. So sabi ko, you know what, I want to do something like that in the future. That's when I saw probably a glimpse of what God wanted me to do in the future. And that's the reason why I also jumped into corporate. Kasi sabi ko, I can't do this in the future without having a foundation. And I can tell people what to do if I myself did not experience it, or I wasn't able to go through with it. So one of the things that I did was, I went into corporate, and I decided at that time, by the grace of God, sabi ko, I would climb the ladder of, the corporate ladder, or na ang gagawin kong principles are the principles that they say are the right principles. So yun nga yung kadalasan kasi, di ba, naririnig na natin dati yung mga politics or dapat ganito and so on. So I wanted to do it the right way, and then eventually become a leader within or manager and C-suite person within the organization, and eventually do it the right way. So yun yung naging umpisa. So that triggered me when I saw that person. I sabi ko, gusto ko sana ganito yung maging ko in the future. And I think this is what God has prepared me to do. Now, syempre mahabang story rin yun. May testimony din ako doon, Tommy, in the side of my journey in my spiritual walk. I'm just cutting off some of the portion, but in a nutshell, that particular part really was clear to me na this is something that God wants me to do eventually in the future. Of course, as I was progressing, yun doon ko na mas lalo na discover, oo nga, all the more we have to develop ourselves as good influencers, better influencers. And by the way, when I was starting off, I think for most of the viewers as well, who are not managers, who are not bosses in their organization, or just rank and file, I did as well start on that side also, and ang hirap. So, and isa sa mga syempre struggle natin, di ba? Some of the struggles that I had in the past was I was just another employee in the company, and there were so many injustices. There are so many things that I wanted to change, but I can't because I was just a part of the big. I was just one of the cogs, ika nga, or I was just the rank and file. Anong pwede kong gawin? That early on, buti na lang nga may mga mentors, I kept on reading books. I kept on looking at how other people are doing it. And doon ko na-discover na pwede pala, I can lead where I am. So that's one of the talks that I have, leading where you are. Kasi as I try to improve pala what I can, or what I can control, which is only myself, eventually my influence grow. Ang galing nung magical yan eh. So parang the more I try to work on myself rather than trying to control or fix what I can't fix outside of myself, the more that my influence eventually grows or grew during that time. Yun na yung times na I was syempre hitting my targets. I was adding more value sa mga kumpanyang papagtrabawan ko, and as a result, people gave me more responsibilities. They trusted me more with bigger area, and eventually they promoted me into leading other people. And that's where my real, sabi nga nila, yung talaga meron kang direct reports, that's where a bigger leadership aspect comes into play, hanggang sa from one role to another, into another. And then eventually when I reached a certain level, about 4 years ago, 2017, I told myself, no, actually at 5 years ago, 2016, 2015, I think I told myself, Lord, and I asked God on this one cycle, mukhang I have to already now move into my next level, which is yung consultancy, which yun nga, speaking to others, doing and eventually doing what that person, that inspiring person showed me back then, and then eventually do what he was doing. Funny thing, Tommy, I went out of corporate to eventually do the speaking engagement consultancy back in 2017. 2018, that same person that inspired me, I shared the stage with him. So I also spoke on the same stage with him during that time. That person is Francis Kong, and I eventually worked with him with Inspire as well. So that's my leadership journey siguro in a nutshell. So I hope I was able to to at least, ang dami kasi niyan, ang laki ng ang dami kwento. So I hope I was able to unpack it in a way that is palatable or at least understandable sa mga viewers natin.
You're sharing that. Siguro yung nakita ko nga you shared about even those who are not in position, they can influence. Siguro next question ko kasi ito yung next. Can you share more of the things that you learned in your journey about selling?
Yeah, thanks again, Tommy. You hit something that's really close to my heart also. No, so I was fortunate enough when I entered the workforce. Ang naging profession ko, or at least I was hired as a salesperson. So and that really opened my eyes into professional selling. But going back, we were raised by my parents as salespeople. My mom is a hardcore salesperson, So talagang na-ingrained din sa amin talaga yan back when we were kids. Pagka summer vacation, we were encouraged to eventually go into small types of business. Minsan nagbabayan sila, pinapabili kami ng mga ice buko, tapos ibebenta namin kung saan nagtatrabaho yung tatay ko, yung father ko at that time, and sometimes may mga ibang mga pagkain na yun again pagka bakasyon namin nung araw. Now, when I entered the yung workforce and I was exposed to professional selling, ika nga, doon ko nakita yung isang prinsipyo na I would say stuck with me also, which is kasi kadalasan pagka sinabing ahente or 'di ba salesperson, parang ang dating sa mga sales training programs ko nga tinatanong ko to anong unang pumapasok sa inyong isipan pag sinabing ahente or salesperson? 'Di ba? So kadalasan hindi magaganda 'yung nasasabi, minsan sabi makulit, lagi nagtatanong ng open-minded ka ba, hindi. So kadalasan hindi positive traits. Kasi nga, ang naging karanasan natin din, sa karamihan sa mga nagbebenta sa atin is that transactional ang dating. Hindi siya, it's not something that para bang ang dating lagi na lang parang yung ahente may kailangan sa'yo or yung salesperson may kailangan sa'yo and therefore kaya kanya kinakausap or binibentahan. Now, there's nothing wrong with earning from selling. And I think that's a very noble profession, ika nga. I still believe in my heart, and up to now I'm still a salesperson. I would proudly say that I wouldn't probably have lasted this much, this long, especially sa consultancy business, if I don't know how to properly sell as well. Now, going back again to your question, ano ba yung principle na yan? So yun yung sabi ko, number one principle. Don't sell because you need something from your customer. Sell because you know you can solve a need by another person. Ulitin ko ulit yun. Of course, marami pa yung principle, but if I were to sum it all up, don't sell because kailangan ko kasing magbenta, kailangan ko pera, kailangan ko ng incentive, kailangan ko commission, kailangan ko ng, again, pera. So ang tingin mo sa mga customer mo is, dollar sign or peso sign. No, sell because you know you can solve a need or a problem na meron yung iba. And of course, because of that, you will get paid. You will eventually earn from it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how we eventually, create economy and eventually earn from it. So yan yung isang prinsipyo na I think madaling sabihin, of course, I understand that, pero when push comes to shove at medyo nahihirapan ka na, mahirap i-implement. That's why it's very important na mag-decision muna kayo, yung disposition ninyo, klaro kagad. It's very clear that I'm doing this because I'm trying to solve a problem or a need. I'm trying to address a need, solve a problem, or even, provide a want. Kasi the other person wants it, needs it, or has a problem to it. And ako, hahanap ako ng solusyon. Sabi nga ni Zig Ziglar, one of the famous sales guru na I really also kumbaga learned a lot from his books, his seminars, his talks. Sabi niya ganon na more people or more salespeople eventually sell more people earn money not by selling products but by solving problems. And I firmly believe as well na ganun nga. And that's what I followed early on in my sales career. Bago pa lang ako noon, iniisip ko na, paano kaya ako makasolve ng problema ng itong mga customers ko? And Tommy, if you do that, and this is not coming from a book, I'm sharing this video again kasi in-apply ko to, nangyari sa akin to. Nahirapan din ako nung araw magbenta katulad probably ng mga ibang nag-uumpisa ngayon. Isa sa mga pinalo kong prinsipyo na when I go to a customer, ang mangyayari sa akin, ang inisip ko lagi, paano ko kaya siya matutulungan? And hindi ako papasok sa isang sales call na ang utak ko is mag-present kagad ako ng produkto ko. So what I do, I usually try to understand ano yung operations nila. Ito yung basic example ko, no? Kasi dati when I entered yung first company ko, ang binibenta namin, tissue paper. So tissue paper, yung mga jumbo roll ko ngayon, nakikita niyo yung jumbo roll na may mga dispenser sa banyo, yun dati yung binibenta ko. Can you imagine, syempre, pagka nagbebenta ka ng tissue, syempre, ang sinusolve mong problema, yun nasa banyo. Kaya nga minsan, when I visit yung mga customers ko, when I make a sales call, the first thing I visit sa kanilang office is not the person I'm calling or yung pupuntahan. I usually go first to the bathroom or yung toilet room, yung toilet nila, yung comfort room nila. Bakit? Kasi I want to understand ano ba nangyayari sa toilet nila. Tingnan ko yung tissue na gamit nila and so on and so forth. Now, primarily because ang gusto ko maintindihan muna is meron bang problema or need in the first place? Para pagka nag-usap kami, magkakaroon kami na at least matatanong ko sa kanya, alam mo na nakita kong ganito o meron ka bang concern dito and so on.
So if there's a lesson about selling, don't just aim to get something out of it. Aim to solve a problem. Aim to solve a problem.
Now, and to add lang, Tommy, kasi syempre hindi lang naman din dahil doon kung bakit gagawin mo siya. You see, whenever I also do a training program for sales, no, when I do lalo na yung art and science of selling. Now, one of the things that I always tell yung participants is that you cannot sell without this one thing na hindi pa na-establish. And that one word is what you mentioned a while ago. Well, related siya doon, yung relationship. But one word is trust. You don't buy from someone you don't trust. And you can hardly sell to someone that don't trust you. Now, bakit ko naman nasabi syempre yung kanina na yung prinsipyo, yun yung first step kasi of eventually having that mindset of solving problems. Bakit? Kasi nga, when you don't do that, you will hardly eventually build trust with your customers. And without trust, naku, ang hirap niyan. Ang hirap talaga niyan. Papunta ka pa lang, parang tumatakbo na palayo sa'yo. But when you have built trust with your clients, with your customers, then it would be easier. In fact, there were times that in my career before and even now, they're the ones who are calling me up kasi nga we built this trust and eventually relationship na that enables yung customers mo na that enables them na pagka naisip nila kung may problema ako, alam mo, ang pwede kong takbuhan dito si Tommy kasi siya yung nakakaalam nito. Or probably pagkalimbawa meron kang sinabi sa kanya na, uy, alam mo, dapat meron kang ino-offer na sa kanilang bago and you are selling something new to them. And because you were able to establish yung trust na dati, nako, ang bilis. Hindi ka na masyadong minsan sabihin, ganun ba? O sige, ilan ba yung o-orderin ko dapat? Minsan tatanungin ka pa, ilan yung o-orderin nila? Kasi nga, you built that trust with them. And trust is built because yun nga, you are a solver of problems rather than a seller of products or services. So again, Tommy, probably we're discussing them. Baka sabihin ng iba, dali-dali sabihin, hindi talagang madali talaga siya sabihin pero mahirap talagang gawin. And you have to decide ahead of time. But I assure them, if they do this, selling shouldn't be scary. Selling shouldn't be hard. Selling shouldn't be a burden. Selling would be a lot of fun. Bakit? Kasi you're approaching it from a point where both of you will win. No, yun.
Thank you for sharing that. So it's about building trust. So trust talaga. Especially right now, bagay na bagay yan kasi talagang iba na yung scamming, ibang level na rin na yan eh. Ibang level na yung scams eh. So parang it's people have a high distrust because of, syempre, kung nangailangan ng isang tao ng money, so may magagawa talaga yung hindi maganda. So talagang may mabenta yan sa'yo na lolokohin ka eh. So talagang trust is so important. And naalala ko nga na na yung like what you shared, especially if you earn the trust, ko pa rin yung hinahanap. Kasi when this was a boom, I heard about this, when the real estate was its highest in the mid-2000, mga before the subprime, mga ganun, medyo tinamaan. There are a lot of brokers who burned bridges, parang nagbenta lang, tapos iniwan sa ere na lang yung buyer, nakuha na yung commission, bahala ka na. So talagang, and it's really parang nakasama lang talaga sa situation. Maybe it adds to the bad name. That's why dun ko nakita din na what I like about what you shared is selling may not be literally about selling a product. It's selling an idea. Kasi inisip ko isang crucial na idea right now is how do you sell yourself right now? How do you sell yourself? Kasi syempre isipin mo kung mag-apply ka ng work right now, anong meron mo na wala sa iba? You're selling an idea na ikaw, what can you give to that company that others cannot give? That's why I like the idea you're selling an idea also. That's why it's not just about the salespeople. It's in general eh. Kasi naisip ko din na minsan yung mga tao, because they do not know how to sell the idea, they just give up, they leave the company. Parang kasi hindi naman sell yung idea nila. Kahit they have the good ideas, but they do not know how to sell it. Siguro before we end, maybe your tips and advices on career. What's your tip and advice for everyone na
naghahanap ngayon ng work? Ang hirap naman ng mga tanong mo, Tommy. Parang kailangan talaga mga 3 days ang natin, no? Seminar talaga na. No, but the good thing about, you mentioned na kanina, siguro for the rest of those who are watching right now, for a more comprehensive answer, I've written a lot of things, especially on the career side. May mga articles akong sinulat na sa LinkedIn. You can visit my LinkedIn account and eventually check out yung isa kong article doon, yung 31 career tips. And there's also yung 31 leadership hack doon for those who want to eventually know more about how can they improve themselves as leaders. And for career itself, yun nga, may marami doon. So maraming principles. But let me give you a number one principle I would say na would help you out. So sabi ko, meron akong tinatawag na yun nga yung dapat you have to eventually grow where you should be growing. Okay, now again, easier said than done. Now, I am a firm believer again that God has given us enough and talents, skills, passions in our heart that would add value to others. Put all these yung 3 things together, you would never probably kumbaga lose an opportunity na magkaroon ng trabaho or ng negosyo. Ulitin ko ulit. God has given us enough talent, skills, and also desires or passion in our hearts that would eventually be of value to others. And when I say of value, ito yung they're willing to pay a price. Kasi may marami na nagsasabi, I'm adding value, I'm adding value. May post nga ako before sa LinkedIn din and in my Facebook page. I would usually challenge that. Try putting a price tag to it. Sabi mo na you're adding value, o sige, sabi mo next time you give it to someone, you tell them, oh ngayon this time around magbabayad ka na ha. Then check if that person is willing to pay the price. If not, you're not adding value. You're just adding a freebie. Okay, so now going back. So how do you now develop your career? What I mentioned kanina kanina na find that sweet spot where God probably has given you as a mission, as a purpose for why you're here. Remember kanina at the early onset nung ano natin, sabi ko, one of the things I believe is that we're all leaders, we're all influencers because we were created in the image of God. And I firmly believe na because we were created in His image, we were meant to do something great. Now, if we connect to the source of who gave us that greatness, ask Him about, ano kaya Lord, ano ba tong dapat kong ginagawa talaga? And here's the thing, you don't have to change course immediately. The beauty about that is that probably you are where you are right now because that's where you should be. Now, the only reason why, alam mo, sorry, Tommy, I'll just unpack this more kasi I feel strongly about this one. Kasi ito yung isa sa mga natutunan ko rin kay Francis Kong and even the other inspirational speakers, or at least even the other mentors that I have, is this. Don't quit too easily, and don't look sideways. Sabi ko nga, may isa nga po, say, only look sideways when you're crossing the road. But when you're in your career, or when you're where you are right now, don't look sideways. Don't look at your batchmates sa college. Don't look at your friend where they are right now. They have their own race to run. Run your own race. God has given you, the race that you have to finish. Concentrate on that one. Now, sabi nga, balikan na doon. So balikan natin doon na once you've probably identified what you are good at, what you can be best at, what you feel strongly about, and what can add value to others, hone yourself to a point where you would be able to do more, to achieve more, and to hone more to achieve more and be responsible of bigger areas and bigger opportunities. Now, mahirap ngayon. Yes, I agree na marami kasi ngayon na may walang trabaho, ganyan. Now, take this opportunity na to hone again your skills. Ang dami ng libre ngayon. Now, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Walang internet noon. Walang Google. We weren't blessed with so much information that we have right now. I find it funny. Years back, I have this batchmates, not batchmate, but childhood friend sa community namin. Nagulat ako, they were able to reside in Singapore for years. Sabi ko, anong ginawa nila doon? Naging chef sa isang restaurant doon. Sabi ko, what chef? Kilala ko yung mga yon. Hindi naman yun marunong magluto dati, or marunong magluto pero never naman sila nagkaroon ng formal schooling. And only to find out, kinuwento sa akin sa kaibigan, ganito ginawa nila. So nag-apply sila ng trabaho sa Singapore. And then sinabi ko, marunong ka ba magluto ng ganitong dish? So I forgot the name of the dish. Ay, marunong ka ba magluto ng ganitong dish? Yeah, marunong ko niyan. O sige, tomorrow, prepare something like this. So the night, during that night daw, punta siya sa YouTube, inaral niya sa YouTube yung paano lutuin yung dish na yon. Pasok na kinabukasan, doon sa nag-test siya na mag-cook, pinatest siya mag-cook. Nagawa niya yung natanggap siya as chef doon. Sabihin na natin siguro probably hindi chef na as in chef, but at least someone that cooks the food for that restaurant, and they were able to, dalawa sila, so they were able to eventually stay there in Singapore and have a career there as cooks or chef, whatever you call it. But at the end of the day, they were the ones preparing the dishes doon sa restaurant na yun. And all they did was go into YouTube and then look for dishes that they plan to cook doon sa restaurant na yun. So what am I saying today? We don't have an excuse anymore. For those who are having trouble, yes, you're mahirap talaga, wala namang madali sa buhay. But what I'm saying is that all you have to do is yung sinabi ko, ano kaya itong binigay sa aking raised ni Lord. Binigyan niya rin ako ng capabilities, ano to mga to. Ano yung talagang matindi sa puso ko na ito, kahit na mahirapan ako, gagawin ko to. And then, ano kayo mag-add value sa iba? And then continue honing yourself on that one. And ayun, after that, you would be surprised, may hirapang mawalan ka ng trabaho. Lagi na lang may naghahanap sa'yo. Lagi na lang parang you will be the one who would be looked for, or parang ikaw yung hahabulin at ikaw yung hahanapin just because you're so good at what you do and because that is what God has prepared you to do in advance. Alam ko mahaba, Tommy, but again, as mentioned then, if you want more of those, I wrote yung 31 career tips in my LinkedIn account.
Thank you for sharing that. Siguro sa mga walang LinkedIn, siguro kasi I met Miss Virginia din Bautista recently, and she mentioned nga mababa kasi ang user rate ng LinkedIn sa Pinas 9 million. Mentioned about LinkedIn. I think that's one of the first steps. When I started using it, really actively use it, I realized that's a first step kasi nakita ko din yung may matutunan ka na sa paggamit pa lang actually. Nakita ko yung culture-wise, ibang culture makikita mo sa LinkedIn. Kung sanay ka sa Facebook, maninibago ka sa LinkedIn. Kung sayang-sayang masaya sa Facebook, baka pwede ka mabore sa LinkedIn. But that's the thing we need to put some work into what we're doing.
To add, Tommy, in fact, lalo na yun yung topic natin. Sabi natin, paano ba nila mag-grow yung career nila, or paano kaya ako magkaka-work, ganyan, nahirapan ako. Nako, all the more. I'm not paid by LinkedIn, by the way. I just saw the potential and the power of LinkedIn when it comes to professionals like yourselves, kung sino man yung mga nanonood ngayon na gusto talagang grow. Kung wala kang LinkedIn, yan, probably kaya nahihirapan ka rin maghanap ng trabaho or maghanap ng opportunities is because you're not in the right platform as well. Nako, pag nandyan ka lang lagi sa Facebook, ang mangyayari lang talaga is yung bangayan lang nung baka sa politika, sa COVID, yan lang ang mga nababasa mo, di ba, mga memes, TikTok, and so on and so forth. Okay lang naman yan, pero sabi nyo, kung gusto nyo magkaroon ng work, gusto nyo mag-improve sarili ninyo, punta kayo dun sa lugar kung saan ganun din ang ginagawa ng mga kapwa na nandoon. And LinkedIn was designed for that, Tommy, kasi kaya nagustuhan ko siya. It was primarily designed for professionals, by professionals, so that these people can band together, learn from each other, and eventually also exchange jobs. Kasi dandun, syempre, may mga kumpanyang naghahanap ng trabaho doon. And may mga taong naghahanap din ng may mga kumpanya naghahanap ng empleyado, may mga taong naghahanap ng trabaho doon. Pero hindi lang siya doon. Hindi lang yan parang job street. It's a place where you can also really hear people like us. I mean, Tom, you're also there. See, Virginia is also there, and many more. And they can learn so much for free. Yeah.
When you mentioned about Honda skills, nakita ko siguro meron kasi siguro tayo, I don't know if it's our culture or it's just maybe because maybe sa sobrang pagmamadali yung everything instant, we don't want to put the work anymore. We don't want to put any work anymore. Parang we wanted everything to be fast, but I realized we have to put some work. You said we are this generation is so privileged. Actually, it's so privileged. Kasi nakita ko everything's online na rin I'm currently taking courses because I just feel like I need to know these things. I want to widen my knowledge on things because syempre nisiko nasapal mga one of the biggest discoveries I've found recently is there is a HR shortage in the small and medium enterprises. Naisip ko, bakit may shortage? Kasi talagang lahat piyapahan sa akin HR. So, inaral ko yung HR. Naghanap ako ng course on HR. Naghanap ako para lang maintindihan ko kasi why there's a shortage all sudden HR. Mismong HR ayaw na mag-HR. So, there's a shortage. So, parang nisip ko, So as long as there is a so-called problem, there's an opportunity. You said nga, diba, there's something to solve. There's always something to solve. Meron talaga eh. Siguro kasi sa kung nasa Facebook ka lang, ang nasa-solve lang yung ano mo, yung kalungkutan mo, gusto mo ma-enjoy ka eh. So entertain. But if you're gonna,
Buti
if you
nga
want to
buti
solve,
sana nga nakakadagdag pa nga, hindi nga nakakasolve, nakakadagdag pa ng frustration mo pag lagi ka nasa Facebook, di ba? I have another talk also about that. Na, you know, one of the reasons why this generation is so burnt out, stressed, meron pa tayong quarter life crisis, di ba? Because we are looking at other people's lives na akala natin yun yung ang ganda-ganda, di ba? Tapos tayo nakukompare natin siya sa sarili natin.
so, they're just looking at the highlight reel or deception. Kasi maraming mahilig na eh, parang exaggerated eh. So, please follow, I'll just tag everything. Jeff Manhilot, he has a public page in Facebook, but also public tag ko na yun sa LinkedIn. Let's force people to use LinkedIn.
I would highly suggest and recommend talaga go into if you're serious with your career, go LinkedIn. Wala na yung Facebook siguro pang friends lang talaga, but LinkedIn is where you should be if you want to grow your career professionally, and not just here in the Philippines. Plug ko rin, Tommy, a lot of my friends also in LinkedIn get their clients get hired outside of the Philippines through LinkedIn. One of my highlights in my consultancy career when I went out was first time in my life I was sent to India, all expense paid trip with allowances, with paid allowances because of LinkedIn, because of my presence in LinkedIn. Someone from India wanted to get my services as a trainer, and they flew me to India. First time I was able to experience that. So I don't know. Sabi ko walang bayad yung LinkedIn sa akin, pero I've seen how it can help the Filipino professionals kasi, and it's helping a lot of Filipino professionals right now.
Add ko na lang din sa share ni Jeff is kasi minsan di natin nakita yung unless subukan na rin kasi we Filipinos, honestly, the way I describe Filipinos, creative naman, magaling. Kasi recently, namin na yung nagkwento sa akin, Facebook, Ireland, hard Filipinos. So sabihin, ganun kagaling. For you to hire Filipinos, Facebook, Ireland pa yun, say ko, posible pala to. That's why, probably one of the first steps you'll do is to go into LinkedIn. If you're really serious about getting a job and you want to if you know that you really made the right choice, probably that's the first thing you should do also. Thank you, Jeff Manhilot, for taking your time. Just in case you want to know more about Zagana Inc., I'll tag everything sa dito para at least mapuntahan talaga. So, like what she shared earlier, babalikan ko yung Zagana Inc. After interviewing kasi about cacao, about coffee, they have something in common. Sinabi na whether it's cacao, it's coffee, just support the farmers in the Philippines. Just support the farmers. Kita ko din, it benefits us in the long run. Kasi if we don't support it right now, we are in the losing end in the long run. Pwede nga mura nakuha mo, pero at the expense of farmers who will be discouraged from continuing on supplying our needs. So talo tayo kasi mag-import tayo, it will be costlier. It's not a win. Basically, in the long run, it's not a win. Maybe nakamura kayo, it's a win at the short term, but in the long run, tayong kawawa din. That's why I keep on hearing the word support the farmers, support the farmers. So thank you, Sir Jeff, for taking your time. And follow him sa Facebook and especially LinkedIn. I'll just tag everything, pati yung link para at least madaling puntahan. So thank you for joining us. I hope this interview helps. Hope you join us again for the next interview. God bless everyone.
God bless. Thank you so much, Tommy.